with Roland, and To Be Heard, the film documentary of the adorable kids that I can't wait to meet from the Bronx. I'm curious to know, how old are the kids today, and did they go to college, and like what are they up to?
The kids now are about 23 years old, so they started this program when they were
15,
17 years old. The question of college is a really important one. It's a spoiler in the film, so I'm going to say you'll have to see the film to find out how each of their story arcs evolve, and they're each different.
Okay. Are they all still friends, very close with each other?
They all are very close with each other, yes.
And did any of them have kids of their own at this point?
One now has a little baby boy, so that's a pretty...
Is that Karina?
Yeah. How did you know?
Wow,
I'm listening to you.
Cool. Very cool.
I don't sit in this seat as ReW for nothing, baby. You know, I have to listen to what you're saying.
One would rue the day if you thought that.
I know I am rudely spacey, and I know I'm rudely polite at times, but I actually do listen to people.
Cool.
And I do talk a lot as well. So, but back to you. I'm curious to know about the themes of the film.
Well, To Be Heard is really about the empowerment that occurs when you master language. And when we work with our kids, we tell them that there are 3 components to literacy that are important: reading, writing, and public speaking. What has happened, though, as the film has gotten out in the world, is that we've realized that one of the most important things that people are talking about is the issue of literacy in this country. You may or may not know that roughly 2/3 of all the people who are imprisoned are part of the U.S. prison system, which are roughly 6 million people, if you include prisoners, people on parole, and probationary advocates, probationary associates. 2/3 are functionally illiterate. So illiteracy in this country is more or less a trip into our prison system. That's the biggest common denominator. More common is illiteracy or functional
Now,
literacy.
do you think it's because kids are dropping out and getting arrested of school, or they are just
Absolutely not.
floating through school without learning?
I think that our
So
school
is
system...
this No Child Left Behind a bunch of BS? I heard they're trying to undo it now.
I think all children are being left behind in a pretty serious way. I think that our educational system is filled with very well-meaning people, but is essentially dysfunctional.
I have to agree with that, but that's a whole can of worms that, I mean, I could talk about for a really long time.
Well, how big a can do we have?
Pretty giant, because, you know, I think the youth is our future, and I think the youth are the ones that are going to destroy or save the planet. And
well, I think the educational debate in this country is really incredibly immature. We tend to talk about engineering problems. You know, do we need charter schools? Do we need longer school days, shorter school days, uniforms, big plates at school lunch? You know, different kind of lighting. Teacher merit pay. Are the unions bad? All of these things are talking about tinkering with a car without knowing where you're going to drive it first. The real question you have to ask yourself in this country is, what is the mission of American school?
And if you were the chancellor of schools in New York City, what would you do to make a difference? How would you? What's your ultimate vision of how this car would have a destination? What would be the destination?
Well, if this country could have that debate, I think we would come to understand there are 3 fundamental reasons to have any kind of educational environment. The first one is to create a good person, someone who has a sense of themselves as a part of the universal spirit. Okay, you might call that a religious mission, you might call it a spiritual mission, you might just call it about a sense of self. The second reason is to create a good citizen, someone who understands what it means to be responsible and engaged in our culture and society, and how to do that. And the third thing is to have the tools to have a good life, whatever tools you need. If you decide you want to be a musician, then you have to have a toolkit that teaches you where you play and compose and think and sing and use your art. I think our school system, nationally, not just New York, fails our kids certainly in the first 2, and for the vast majority of kids in the third reason too. So to me, those 3 purposes would be is
And
super
how would
structured.
you mandate that?
How would you mandate that?
Yeah.
Well, you would start by
Maybe
eliminating a lot of things that are irrelevant. One of them is this
Like
obsession we have
tests.
with high-stakes testing.
Yeah.
There has not been a single study in the history of humanity that correlates test scores with real success in life. Not a single study. And believe me, the people who produce tests and invent tests and write tests would pay any amount of money if they could prove that your test scores
Mean something.
in your life.
Darn it!
If-
I mean,
Ruth,
did you
if
test high on anything?
I tested high on everything, and it was utterly worthless. And I could teach your shoe how to test high.
I know.
I went to a place in New York City called Stuyvesant High School.
Oh,
We
you
were
did?
tested
Did you go to
15
the old
times.
one?
Yeah, the old one. And testing was a joke. It's a
It's
series
how-
of tricks.
Yeah, it is. Oh, really? You
Yeah.
want to teach us?
Well, we don't have enough time for me to do that, but
Is it like every third one is a C or every
There's-
second
it's-
one is a
It's
B?
very easy to figure out how to test well. If you have a little support in your life, you can do that. A lot of kids, especially
Like
kids,
cheating, you mean?
it's got nothing. Well, it's cheating in this. Cheating. Real cheating is stealing the answers. But we endow certain kids with a skill set that has nothing to do with intelligence, but it has
Right.
a lot to do
Oh,
with
absolutely, absolutely.
Listen, if tests meant something, you'd have your SAT scores tattooed on your forehead. Do you think anyone is going to hire you by your
No.
SAT scores? And if they do, and you don't work out, they're not going to keep you on because you had high SAT scores. Tests are a way to control and make people manageable.
No, then that's all.
And I think that's the fourth
So
mission.
did you ever hear of City of Peace or the Possibility Project? Or
I haven't, but they sound interesting. Are they here in the city?
they are, and one of my daughters was involved. It used to be called City of Peace, and now they've changed the name to the Possibility Project. And what they do is they go into all of New York City, and they have 60 kids from all 5 boroughs, and they meet every single Saturday for the entire year, from 11 to 6. They learn about respect, about whatever. But what they do is they meet and they develop a play, like a Broadway show, and it's all about how creativity can change the world and save the world. And it reminds me, then they do this show where they bring in choreographers and producers and directors, and they put on like a Broadway show of snippets of the cast's stories. No one can play themselves. And this show is like a musical with dance. It's amazing. And the stories are about drug abuse, rape, Iraq, like things that are happening today.
Right. This kind of work requires courage and commitment from young people, but they have.
Yeah,
I have
commitment
never
was a
met.
big
I have
one.
never met a young kid who didn't, within minutes, if not hours at the latest, show me that
They want to do
that they
it.
have genius. Not
They
that they want
love
to. They
it.
have
It changed
inherent
my
genius.
daughter's life.
Well, you
And
asked
your
me earlier.
movie sounds like this type of thing.
Thank you. Maybe it is. It's certainly about language and literacy. And one of the things that we have to understand in this country, you asked about what I might mandate if I were
Yes.
king of the school system, would be a tremendous focus on masterful acquisition of literacy skills. There's been a discussion in this country about the importance of language way back to the beginning. Thomas Jefferson, and this is my poetry quote, wrote back in 1819 in a letter to Colonel Yancey, one of his Revolutionary War buddies. He said, "A country that wants to be ignorant and free wants what never was and never will be." He was the first white rapper, in case you didn't know that.
He was a lot of things.
He was a lot of things. And so Jefferson understood that democracy was embedded in literacy. And what we have today, here's a fact that I think will curl your hair if you have hair to curl. Apparently that's going to be a challenge with you. But there's an organization called the National Assessment of Adult Literacy. That's NAAL. Every 7 or 8 years they do a massive study of the proficiency of American adults in literacy. The last time they did this was about 2004 or so. They determined that only 1 out of 8 U.S. adults is proficient enough in reading to understand the U.S. Constitution. So,
I'm probably one of them.
Okay.
Not proficient.
all right.
You know.
So how do you have a functioning democracy if your entire populace is incapable of understanding?
I had a hard time even with that Thomas Jefferson quote, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So I'm in the masses.
Well, I think it's criminal. It's criminal that we
And I am
deny our
college
children.
graduate.
Right. College doesn't mean
Nothing.
anything.
Oh, I know. You learn how to slip through the graduation line.
So, college is for many people.
And I love language. I'm a writer. I'm a songwriter. I'm a glib human being. However, a lot of things go over my head, like the Constitution.
Right.
Do you believe it? Do you believe in the...
I believe that you should be able to read the Constitution. And
do you read it?
Do I read it every night before I go to bed?
Yeah, like have you read it to your classes?
Yes,
and you go through it and explain it?
I don't explain it. I let them figure out what it means.
And they get it?
Yeah, it's not... this is what's frustrating, is that it's...
Do you like Shakespeare? What book are you reading now? I'm like a train right now.
I will answer questions if you give me a chance to
Okay,
answer.
all right.
Which one do you want me to answer?
Anyone you want. It's
okay.
Ask a Stupid Question Day.
So asking
everything works.
questions repeatedly is part of it.
I would imagine, why not?
Cool. So, I do not believe in teaching kids in a traditional way. I believe that they are responsible for taking their own education. We don't give them an education.
Do you mean like 7 years ago?
Do I? In what way would I mean that?
Do you read that too?
Well, anything. We brought, Moby Dick into the classroom and read sections on that.
Oh,
I
Moby
think
Dick,
it's his birthday.
Yeah.
It's that guy's birthday today.
Was
And I even put him here for a reason.
Herman Melville. Yeah.
No, well, he died on
He
this
died
day.
on this day. See, he
At
is an angel in this
72.
room.
Way to go, Herman.
Yeah, see, we're going to take a break and we're going to talk to you a little more because, yeah, you're cool, mister.